She bought the dresser because the wood had a story in its grain. The seller said it came from an estate and might hold good luck. The drawers opened smooth and smelled of linseed oil. One small compartment at the back of the top drawer was sealed with a thin strip of leather and a tiny brass keyhole. The seller shrugged and said people often kept secrets in furniture. He gave her the key. At first, the compartment held nothing but lint. When she opened it with the key a week later, she found a folded page covered in handwriting that was not quite hers, but close a voice in ink. The page was a list of phrases. I forgive. I'll call. Tomorrow I'll stay. They were things people had tried to say and couldn't. Each line had a small date and a name. She read them aloud because the sound of her voice on the paper made the words feel real. The house settled with a contented creak. Over the following nights, the dresser answered. Other pages slid from the compartment onto the bed, snippets of conversations she'd had. Apologies she'd swallowed, the last sentence someone had said to her father before he left. The Outvoices, as she came to call them, carried the precise cadence of regret. The more she read, the more the world outside her room narrowed. People began to speak to her with gaps. Sentences paused in the middle. Friends would look at her and finish their thoughts with the same words she had read from the drawer. Her voice took on an echo. Phrases she had once seen on the page bubbled up in her mouth unbidden. She found herself apologizing at odd moments, promising to come by tomorrow, in a voice she'd never planned to use. Then one morning she woke to find the top drawer empty of everything but a single name written on the inside lip. Her own name. Beside it, a small tally mark had been added. She tried burning the pages. The flames licked the ink and left a smell of old gratitude. The charred remnants assembled themselves on the dresser top in neat lines like tiny bones. The compartment remained replenished by night with new slips, lists of missed calls, and sent letters, the precise way someone had once laughed and then stopped. Her friends became smaller. Conversations with them lost edges, began leaving mid-sentence, distracted by distant telephone rings she'd never heard. At parties, people told stories and then stopped, as if the sentence had been scooped from their mouths by an invisible spoon. One week the dresser did not produce words, but voices. In the still hour before dawn, she heard the faint susurration of speech phrases folded like paper coming from the closed compartment. They were whispering the names of the people she loved, beckoning in tones she had used in kindness. She pressed her ear to the wood and heard, not her own voice, but a chorus that knew how to call in tones tender enough to be irresistible. When a voice calls someone by the exact name of their childhood, with the inflection a specific parent used, the person listens. People started answering the calls. They walked away mid-dinner, mid-embrace, following sounds only they heard. Her neighbor came by the next morning and, looking at her with eyes glassy as coins, said, I have to go where they called me from. He left with a small suitcase and did not return. She realized too late that the drawer gave in exchange for what it took. Each borrowed phrase, each unpaid apology, needed balance. The dresser's ledger was her social life. Names were being circled and subtracted. When the tally by her name reached a certain neat number, the bottom fell out of the house's small language. The room around her went mute. Her phone showed unread messages that read only as ellipses. Friends stopped texting full sentences and began to send single, neat emojis that felt like hieroglyphs. Last, the drawer offered silence, the purest, most hungry thing. In the compartment, she found a small, blank card. On it, in letters she did not recognize, a single instruction: answer when they call. When the floorboards began to creak in a pattern, she knew the tally had run its course. Voices outside learned her cadence. They began to speak in half lines of the sentences she had read aloud months before. The neighbor's suitcase was found neatly folded in his empty hall. The dressers would smelled faintly of him. Avoid furniture that listens. Drawers are patient collectors, and, like some cupboards and tales, they will open for a price. If a thing inside begins to talk about what you could have said, beware, because things that speak can also call others by name.